At 2:42 a.m. GMT, Earth vanished. No warning, no explosion, no bright flash in the sky. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. From the moon, from Mars, from the satellites still orbiting nearby, all cameras showed the same thing. Earth had simply disappeared. Panic came slowly, like a heavy fog. At first, no one believed it. Scientists checked their instruments again and again. Maybe it was a software glitch. Maybe the readings were wrong, but the planet was gone. Billions of people had disappeared with it. No one could reach them. Signal. No emergency broadcasts. Silence. 17 years passed. Humanity didn't die. Not completely. Colonies on Mars, Europa, Ganymede, and the asteroid belt survived. So did a few deep space missions. These survivors lived in fear, confusion, and sorrow. Some believed Earth was destroyed. Others said it was stolen. No one had proof. But one thing was certain: something powerful had taken Earth, and no one knew why. Captain Alara Voss stared at the stars from her ship, the horizon's wake. She had been 26 when Earth vanished. Now she was 43, and the same question still haunted her. Where did it go? Her ship drifted above Titan, Saturn's frozen moon. The resistance had followed strange gravitational waves to this place. Deep below the ice, something was pulsing slow, steady, ancient. The signals weren't natural. They repeated in a pattern. Something buried beneath the surface was calling out. Alaro's team had landed 2 days ago. Now they stood inside a deep cavern, carved by ice drills. The air was freezing, and even the advanced suits couldn't stop the cold completely. But no one complained. All eyes were on the black object standing in the center. It was a monolith, over 12 feet tall, smooth, and without markings. No metal, no seams, just cold stone. But it pulsed, slowly like a heartbeat. "Do you think it's human?" whispered one of the engineers. Ilara shook her head. "It's older." The monolith had been sending out strange signals, too structured to be natural, too complex for any known alien language. But when one of the crew touched it, something happened. It lit up. The light didn't blind them. Instead, it went straight into their minds. A flash of images, a roaring wind, feeling of falling, then flying. Mountains rising, oceans boiling, skies burning, and a voice. Not in words, but in memory. If they took Earth, unleash the first memory. The cavern went silent. No one moved. They looked at each other, unsure what they had just felt. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just a message. It was a command. Later that night, Alara sat alone inside the ship, staring at old pictures of Earth. Her mother, her younger brother, her home in Oslo, all gone. But the monolith hadn't shown her loss. It had shown her something else, a different Earth. Not the one she remembered. This Earth was wild and ancient. Towering beasts walked its forests. Strange lights moved in the sky. And something buried deep in its core was awake. Watching, waiting. She rubbed her eyes and whispered, "What are you?" The ship's AI flickered on. "Captain, I have completed the signal analysis." "Go on." "The monolith is sending a signal not only outward, but inward, into Titan itself. Something beneath the surface is responding." Ilara stood. A deeper drill. 6 hours later, they reached a second chamber, even colder than the first. But what they found inside made 2 of the crew fall to their knees. Another object this time, not a monolith, but a sealed vault. On its surface, ancient symbols glowed faintly. Some looked vaguely human, others didn't. "What is this?" one scientist asked. Alara stepped forward, her breath fogging her visor. "I think this is what remembers Earth," she said quietly. "Not just the planet, but what lived before us. What we were before we were human." A line appeared down the center as it began to open. The lights in the cave dimmed. The air grew still, and then they heard it. A whisper inside their minds. Thousands of voices speaking at once. Storm of memories not their own. Song that made their hearts race and their hands shake. One crew member screamed. Another collapsed. Elara gritted her teeth and stepped closer. "Why are you calling to us?" she asked, and again came the answer, not in words, but in pure thought. "Because you are not what you think. You are older, or you are unfinished, and now you are awakening." In that moment, Elara knew Earth had not been destroyed. It had not been stolen. It had been hidden because it carried something the galaxy feared, and that something was starting to wake. In them, the voices did not stop. Even after the vault opened, even after the lights on the walls faded, the whispers continued. They were not loud. They didn't come through the ears. They came through the bones, the blood, the mind. Elara stood frozen, her gloved hand still on the edge of the black vault. The others behind her backed away slowly. No one spoke. No one needed to. They all heard the same thing. Not words, but memories. Too many. Too deep. One of the engineers, Dr. Malik, dropped to his knees, hands on his helmet. "These thoughts aren't mine," he gasped. "I see places I've never been, stars I've never known." Elara moved her hand away from the vault. The whispers softened. She turned to her team. "We found something buried here, something that remembers." Another scientist, Laura Chin, looked pale. "Captain, this is an alien, not completely. Some of those images, they looked like Earth, but not the Earth we knew. It was older, different." Elara nodded slowly. She had seen it too. Size of cities, oceans that glowed under twin moons, and skies filled with strange flying shapes, not machines, not birds, something else. They brought the vault back to the ship, carefully locking it inside the secure bay. The signal from the monolith had stopped. But the whispers continued whenever anyone got close. The ship's AI, named Wraith, ran a scan of the vault again. "There are layers of data encoded into the structure," it said. "Some of the patterns match early human neural signals. Others do not." Elara leaned closer. "So this thing is part human and part something else," as Wraith replied. "But the human part is much, much older than modern DNA. It predates recorded history. It may even predate Homo sapiens." Everyone stared at the screen. In silence, Elara took a deep breath. What if this vault isn't just showing memories? What if it's unlocking them? Laura looked confused. "You mean like hidden thoughts?" "No," Elara said quietly. "I mean memories that were inside us all along, waiting." The crew didn't sleep that night. Some sat alone in the quiet parts of the ship, drawing strange symbols they didn't remember learning. Others reported dreams, visions of battles fought with thought, of cities that floated in the sky, of voices singing through fire and water. And Elara, she dreamed of herself, not as she was, but as someone else, tall, glowing, surrounded by thousands, not human, not alien. Something in between. She woke up gasping. Wraith had been running translation models all night. The morning it spoke. "Captain, I have decoded the core message inside the vault. Let's hear it." A low sound played across the speakers, a hum rising and falling like a song made of time. And then, in clear English, "The memory you carry is not a gift. It is a warning. You were shaped to survive. But before you were human, you were more." No one spoke for a long time. Then Elara said, "What does it mean, shaped to survive?" Wraith replied, "It suggests that humans are not natural. Rather, not entirely. Your species was made or guided." "By who?" Malik asked. "That is not yet clear," Wraith answered. "But this vault was not made by aliens. Its builders once walked on Earth." Elara felt her stomach twist. "Then they're like us." Wraith paused. "No, you are like them, but lesser, like a shadow of a shadow." That same day, far across the stars, a signal reached the edge of a dying system. It was caught by the archivists. They were not a race of warriors. They were keepers, preservers. They collected worlds before they became dangerous. Before they woke up, one of their watchers floated inside a moon-sized craft, receiving the signal. It pulsed with patterns the archivists had buried long ago. patterns they had hoped would never return. The Watcher turned to the Council. Earth's remnants have found a memory. Another replied, voice cold. Then it begins. We must act. If they awaken fully, we cannot stop them. Should we destroy them? No, came the answer. We must contain them. If they remember what they were, the galaxy will burn back. On the horizon's wake, Elara felt it. A deep stirring in her blood, in her bones. She stared at the vault and whispered, what are we becoming? And again the same voice inside her head answered, not becoming, returning. The lights in the ship flickered. Then, without anyone touching it, the vault opened. Inside was not a weapon, not data, but a sphere smooth, white, pulsing. Elara reached out the moment her fingers touched it. The entire ship went silent, and every human on board remembered something they had never known, something terrifying, something powerful, something not human. The moment the sphere was touched, time inside the ship seemed to pause. Elara didn't move, couldn't move. Her body stood still, but her mind was falling through something deeper than space. She wasn't dreaming. She wasn't hallucinating. She was remembering. She saw a world not Earth, but familiar. A sky filled with twin stars, creatures that looked almost human, but taller, faster, brighter. They walked through cities made of light. They spoke through thought, and they feared nothing. Until something came. Elara gasped and dropped the sphere. Her legs gave out, and she hit the floor, breathing hard. Others around her fell too. One by one her crew collapsed, eyes wide, minds overwhelmed. But the memory stayed. Not just images, but truth. Elara crawled to the nearest wall and leaned against it, her heart pounding. Her hands trembled. We weren't the first, she whispered. Rada's voice came over the intercom, quiet, cautious. Captain. The sphere sent out a long-range signal. It is not human. It is not alien. It is ancient. Estimated range, 10,000 light-years in. All directions. What kind of signal? She asked, still shaking. A call, Wraith replied. A memory. It is looking for others like itself. Elar's eyes narrowed. Others like us. Across the stars, deep within the dark edge of a dead galaxy arm, the archivists stirred. They had no faces, no mouths. They did not breathe. They had evolved past bodies long ago. Oh, but their minds were fast, so fast. They saw the past, present, and future, almost together. They had watched Earth for centuries. Not to destroy it, not to control it, but to keep it asleep. They were not evil. We were afraid. Because long ago, before humans even built fire, the archivists found signs of a power too great to be left free. A power born not of machines, but of memory. A species that had once bent stars, moved planets, spoken to time itself. That species had vanished.
Aye.
But Earth carried its blood. The archivists believed the memory would die with time. But Earth grew. Humans spread. And now they had touched the sphere. They are remembering. One archivist said across the mental link. Another replied, we took the planet to delay this moment. They were never supposed to awaken. A third added in the experiment. Failed, we must act. And so they did. Back on the horizon's wake, alarms began to blare. Wraith's voice spoke fast. Captain, multiple unknown ships are entering this system. Their energy signatures match the group known as archivists. Elara stood slowly, her strength returning. They found us, she muttered. The ship trembled slightly. Outside in the dark space near Titan, 3 silver-black ships appeared. They didn't look like warships. No weapons, no markings. They floated like shadows. Wraith scanned them. No life signs, no coms, but energy readings. Massive. The crew gathered in the command deck. No one panicked, but tension filled the room like smoke. Elara stared at the screen. They're not here to talk, she said. As if answering her, one of the ships released a pulse. It wasn't a weapon, not yet. The pulse hit the horizon's wake, and suddenly, all the power on board flickered. Lights dimmed. Engines went quiet. The ship was being scanned, not just the systems, the people. "Stop it," Ilara shouted. Wraith struggled to resist the intrusion. "They're trying to read our minds, copy our memories." And then, just as fast as it came, the scan ended. The sphere on the lower deck began to glow again, brighter than before. It floated into the air, spinning. Ilara rushed down with 2 crew members. As they reached the sphere, a shape formed in the light. Not a face, not a figure, but a presence, and it spoke. Not with sound, but with force. "You were stolen, you were broken, but now you begin to rise." The crew backed away. Ilara stayed still. "Who are you?" she asked. The light pulsed. "We are what came before. It are what remains." The archivists feared what we left behind. But they forgot why we vanished. "What did you leave behind?" Lara asked. The light dimmed for a moment. "We left ourselves. In you." In orbit, the archivist ships charged their energy cores. They had decided Earth's fragments could not be allowed to evolve. They would erase this memory before it reached others. But as their cores began to glow, a strange thing happened. Something far away answered the sphere's signal. A distant star flickered. A new signal, old and powerful, echoed back. It came from a system that no longer appeared on any map. A dead system, forgotten one. But now, something there had awakened, and the archivists felt fear. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, they hesitated. Ilara looked at the stars on the main screen. "They're not the only ones watching," she whispered, and far out in the void, somewhere past forgotten stars, something began to move. Not a ship, not a fleet, a memory the size of a world, and it was coming back. The sphere stopped glowing. It fell slowly into Ilara's hands, now warm and pulsing like a heart. Her fingers tingled, as if the memory inside it was still alive, still watching her above Titan. The 3 archivist ships remained motionless. Their energy cores still burned, but they had not fired. Something had changed. Something had scared. Then Ilara returned to the bridge. Her crew looked tired, shaken, but alert. Each of them had seen visions they didn't fully understand. Their minds had been touched by something ancient. But now they all felt that something was building inside them, something old and powerful. Wraith's voice came through the speakers. "Captain, I found something unusual in our memory archives. A locked program. It activated when the sphere responded." Ilara frowned. "A program? From where?" Hesitated. "Earth. It was sent from a deep lab in Antarctica 2 days before Earth disappeared. Hidden inside a common satellite ping? I've just now decoded the access key." "What's it called?" she asked. "Project Deicide." The room went quiet. Everyone stared at the main screen as the word appeared. "Deicide. The killing of a god." Ilara nodded once. "Open it." A second later, the screen went black. Then a message appeared in simple white letters. "If you are reading this, Earth has fallen. Humanity is in exile. What you carry is not a weapon. It is memory. And memory is the deadliest force in the universe." Another line followed. "Project Deicide is not for war. It is for remembrance. And what you remember will change everything." The message ended. A hidden map loaded on the star chart. Coordinates far outside human-explored space. Past the red line. Past the ancient dark. Ilara narrowed her eyes. "That's in the void," Wraith replied. "The void is uncharted. No ships return from there." Ilara looked at her crew. "Then it's time we see why." Before they could prepare, a jump. One of the crew members' officer, Gink, collapsed on the floor. He began shaking violently, whispering something in another language, not one anyone understood. When Ilara reached him, his eyes were glowing faintly gold.
Upright.
Not blinding just enough to see it wasn't natural. He suddenly grabbed her hand, his voice clear. "They're not just memories. They're blueprints." Then he passed out. The med team rushed to help him. Wraith continued scanning his brain. "Captain." The AI said slowly, I believe Officer Jane's mind has unlocked a dormant layer of cognition. He's accessing information that shouldn't be possible. Is he safe? For now. But this pattern matches ancient signals found inside the vault. Something is rewriting human neural structures. Elara didn't flinch. It's starting. Wraith paused. There is one more thing. Project Deicide's destination. It's broadcasting back to us. A low signal. It was sleeping. Now it's waking up. Waking up to what? Malik asked quietly. Wraith replied, to us. The horizon's wake, prepared for jump. Engines charged. Systems locked. But just before they left Titan's orbit, one of the Archivist ships moved. It sent a direct message. It was not audio. Not video. Just one sentence. Do not go there. You will not return the same. Elara stared at the message. They're afraid. Lara asked. Afraid of what? Elara looked out the viewport. Of us, she said. And of what we're about to remember. It jumped into the void. It took 8 hours to arrive. No stars, no light, only blackness. Like space itself had died here. But in the center of that darkness was a sphere. Not small, like the one Elara carried. This was planetary. Massive, cold, dead. But it pulsed just once when the ship approached. The crew stared at it in silence. What is it? Someone whispered. Wraith answered with a tone that almost sounded like fear. It's not a planet. It's not a station. It's a brain. The crew fell silent. Wraith continued. A memory core. Built to survive extinction. It's been asleep for millions of years, but our arrival woke it up. A message came from the core, not in language, in feeling sadness, rage, hope. And then one clear thought. You are the last spark. Light the fire. The crew began to shake as the ship was pulled toward the surface. They couldn't stop it. Elara held tight to the small sphere in her hands. It was glowing hot now. She knew what was about to happen. The memory inside humanity was about to connect with the original source. Not a weapon, not a fleet, but the thing that made Earth so dangerous to begin with. Memory that could change matter. Memory that could rewrite life. Memory that once made God's project. Deicide wasn't about killing gods. It was about restoring them and humanity. It was just beginning to remember how. The ship touched the surface of the ancient sphere. It made no sound. There was no welcome, no defense system, no signal, just silence. But inside every crew member, something changed. Elara felt it first. Her heartbeat slowed. Her vision sharpened. Her thoughts came faster. And then, images, visions, not dreams, but memories. Not hers, but still real. She saw stars being shaped like clay. She saw voices speaking to planets, making them bloom. She saw a war not with weapons, but with will. She stumbled back, breathing heavy. Her skin was cold, but her hands glowed faintly, like her blood carried light. Wraith's voice spoke carefully. Captain, I believe the core has connected to your mind. Elara nodded. It's not just showing me history. It's giving me something. The others were changing too. Not painfully quietly. They looked stronger, more aware, like their bodies remembered how to be something. More Malik spoke. Voice steady, but distant. I can read this ship's systems without touching them. Laura stared at a screen. It flickered and changed shape just by her looking at it. We're syncing with it, she said softly. Wraith confirmed it. The core is awakening what lies inside your DNA. Hidden for eons. Locked for survival? It's no longer locked. But it was not just the people changing far across the void. Something answered the call in a dark corner of the galaxy. Just beyond any mappa. Massive signal burst out. Not a distress call, not a threat, a memory ping. It spread like fire across forgotten systems. Through black holes, through dust, through the edges of the universe where no light dared go. And then ships began to wake. Thousands, Tens of thousands. They were not like any known design. Long, sleek, black as space itself. Some shaped like wings, others like blades. Others had no clear shape at all, just shifting light. These ships did not use engines. They moved by thought. They had been asleep for longer than humanity existed. But now, their masters had returned, and they heard the call. One ship, the largest of them all, slowly turned toward the direction of the core. Its name was written across time itself. The silence of first fire, and it moved. Back near the memory. Coriolara stood alone at the center of the ship, her hand on the glass. Below her, the ancient world still pulsed slowly like a heart waiting to beat faster. She whispered, "They didn't just leave us this memory." Wraith spoke beside her. "No, they left you an inheritance. But why wait so long?" R.A. paused. "Because long ago your kind was too powerful. They broke stars. Bended time, the galaxy united to stop them. And so, they made sure you forgot. And waited for the day you would be strong enough to remember." Lara clenched her fists. And now that day has come. Screens on the ship lit up. A map appeared showing space between systems. Between stars and glowing dots. "Thousands of them?" Laura gasped. "What are those?" Wraith answered calmly. "Ships. Ancient ones. Older than any known civilization. They were waiting for the core to speak again." The crew stared in awe. "Are they alive?" Malik asked. "They are not alive, as you know." Wraith replied. "They were made from living thought. And now that you carry memory again, they're yours." The screen zoomed in on one ship. It was massive, larger than Earth's old moon. It began to shift shape, reacting to Elara's presence. Captain Wraith said slowly, "It's responding to you." A deep hum filled the ship, not loud but heavy. Like the voice of a planet speaking underwater, the small sphere Elara still held floated from her hand. Glowing white, it drifted into the air, spinning faster, until it vanished in a flash of light. The voice returned not outside, but inside every mind on board. "The war is not coming. It already came. You were made to end it. Rise now." Suddenly, the horizon's wake lifted from the memory core. It didn't use engines. It rose as if pulled by unseen hands. Before them, in the blackness, the sky filled with lights. Thousands of ships had arrived, and they all turned toward Elara's ship. No weapons were aimed. No threats sent. They were waiting, not for orders, for leadership. Elara stood tall on the deck, her crew silent behind her. She reached out and pointed at the star map. "Take us to the place where they first silenced us," she said. Wraith responded, confirmed, setting course for the center of the Archivist Empire. And in the darkness of space, Forgotten Fleet began to move, not with fear, not with anger, but with memory. Because humanity had remembered what it was. And now, the galaxy would remember too. The sky was no longer empty. From every side of the void, ancient warships moved with silent purpose. They didn't burn fuel. They didn't fire weapons. They simply followed Elara's ship, guided by something deeper than orders. They were remembering, and now so was Earth. Not the old Earth, but something new. Something transformed. Far away from the Archivist border, sensors across dozens of alien systems picked up a strange energy reading. Something massive was moving through the dark between galaxies. Something shaped like a planet, but not a planet anymore. A whisper spread among the stars. Earth is returning. Inside the horizon's wake, Elara stood at the command deck, her hands resting on the railing, her eyes fixed on the star map. One glowing now pulsed in the center of it. Wraith confirmed what everyone feared and hoped. Planet detected. Mass identical to Earth, but its surface has changed. Orbiting outside known space, location, unknown before today, Malik asked. Wraith answered, "That is unclear." The memory core back in the void had vanished after. They left. It had collapsed into light, then folded into nothing. But it left a final message inside the crew's minds. Your world remembers. And now the world had returned. The fleet reached it in less than 5 hours. Space twisted strangely as they traveled, folding around the ships like memory bending. Reality. No jump drives, no wormholes, just thought and will. When they arrived, no one spoke. The thing in front of them was Earth. Same size. Same countenance. Same oceans. But its surface glowed with thin, golden lines, not like metal, or like scars of light, moving, shifting, breathing. There were no satellites, no stations, no sign of life, yet all of them felt it. The planet was watching. Laura stared at it, voice quiet. This isn't just Earth. It's become something else. Laura agreed. It's not a planet anymore. It's memory made solid. She took a deep breath. We go down. Wraith warned. Atmosphere is stable. Gravity is unchanged. But energy levels are far beyond anything Earth ever had. Be cautious. They landed. On what used to be North America, the land was quiet. The air was clean. Too clean. No birds. No trees. No ruins, but they walked on ground they knew roads, half buried in glass. Cities turned to smooth black stone. Every step felt familiar and strange. In the center of what used to be a great city, maybe Chicago, maybe not, stood a tower of light. It stretched into the sky. No doors, no windows, just pure white energy. And as they approached, the tower spoke. Not out loud, but inside their minds. Welcome back, children of memory. Alara stepped forward. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced. Why did you bring Earth here? The answer came slowly, like a dream returning after years because the galaxy forgot. But Earth remembers, Malik asked. What do you remember? Tower pulsed. Then it showed them. Not through screens. It's not through images. But by pulling their minds into the past. They stood together on a world not Earth but very much like it. Millions of years ago, they saw themselves not as they were, but as something more. Tall, bright, powerful. They weren't just people. They were builders, thinkers, speakers to stars. And they saw what came. Next, the war, the silence, the fall. They watched as the first race, the ones they once were, made one last choice. To forget. To hide. To bury Earth inside a shell of stone and water. To restart as something smaller, slower, safer. Humans, but memory never dies. And now, the seal had broken. Back in the present, Alara dropped to her knees, gasping. The others stood frozen, eyes wide, hearts pounding. We were the beginning, she whispered, and they buried us to protect the end. The tower pulsed again. The archivists did not steal you. They tried to stop you, but now they have failed. Far above. The ancient fleet circled the planet. One of the ships, the Silence of First Fire, began to descend. Not by choice. It was being called Wraith, reported quickly. Captain, the planet is pulling the flagship toward it. Not with gravity, with thought. Ilara didn't stop it. She only whispered, it's time. The ship lowered into a huge crater where an ocean once stood. It fit perfectly, as if it had landed there before long ago, and when it touched the Earth, the ground glowed. The planet came alive. Lines of light spread across continents. Cities formed in seconds, not built, but remembered. Towers rose. Roads appeared. Rivers flowed. It wasn't magic, it was memory. Earth was becoming what it once was, a living archive. A world that didn't just carry life, but held history in its body, and now, it remembered everything. Ilara looked up at the sky. The stars were shifting. The archivists had seen it, and they were coming. But this time, Earth wasn't alone. This time, Earth was awake. The stars were burning, not with fire, but with fear. Across the edge of known space, every sensor screamed. The archivists had launched their final wave. Not scouts, not warnings. This was war. Their armada stretched across 100 systems. World ships, mind cruisers, quantum spires that erased light behind them. They had only one purpose now: stop Earth from remembering. On the surface, Earth was no longer still. Towers of gold and obsidian climbed the skies, built from nothing but memory. Cities were returning cities, no map remembered. Every molecule of soil knew. The streets whispered languages long forgotten. Monuments rose to names that had no meaning. It felt like family. Alara stood at the center of it all, on the platform once called the Continental Heart. She watched as ships from the first race began waking up, rising from underground silos, hidden oceans, and even orbit itself. They had not been destroyed in the last war. They had been hidden sleeping beneath the fake Earth. Waiting to be needed again, Malik stepped beside her, helmet under one arm. They're coming, and fast. The archivists aren't holding back this time. Wraith hovered behind them, voice steady, but deeper now. Signal patterns show no attempt at diplomacy. This is full erasure protocol. Alara nodded. They're afraid. Laura walked toward them, a scroll of light in her hands, a message the planet had given her directly. Don't just fear what we remember. They fear why we were made to forget. She held out the glowing scroll. It pulsed with warmth. It wasn't just a reset. It was protection. Malik frowned. Protection from what? Alara didn't answer. She couldn't. Because she'd already felt it too. Something deeper was moving, not in space, not in time, but under all of it, beneath memory. Beneath stars, it was watching, and it was waking. Far above Earth, the first fleet of the archivists dropped out of warp. They formed a wide ring around the reborn planet. No messages, no delay, just weapons charged and ready. A voice cold and ancient echoed across all frequencies. This world is not permitted to exist. The sky turned gold as Earth's atmosphere responded, not with shields, but with memory. Thousands of golden rings spun around the planet like halos. They hummed with ancient tonestunes, no species remembered, but all feared. The first archivist missiles fired, but they never landed. The golden rings shattered the warheads in mid-space, slicing them clean from existence. Alara turned to her. Team, prepare the mine ships. The ships they now controlled didn't use fuel. They used memory. They flew not with engines, but intent. Laura's voice shook. Captain, the memory of the war. It's alive inside these ships. If we launch them, Alara nodded. I know. It could bring back everything. But if we don't, we lose Earth again. The crew moved quickly. Across the glowing cities, thousands of humans, new and old, stood ready. Some had been awakened from stasis. Others had been remade by Earth's touch. All remembered now, and all were willing. The mine ships launched. They tore into the stars like thoughts on fire. No trails, no sound, but they struck hard. The archivist front line shattered, but it wasn't enough. More came, for every archivist ship destroyed, 10 more jumped in. Ilara's fleet began to break under the pressure. One of the first race dreadnoughts thought that Burns was caught between two time-collapse fields and crushed into memory ash. Laura screamed. They're adapting. They're erasing memory now. Not just metal. But Earth wasn't done. The tower at the heart of the world pulsed. Once more, then we must remember deeper. Beneath the crust, something shifted. The world cracked not with destruction, but with release, and something rose. A ship, unlike the others, not made of steel, not grown from crystal, but made of light and thought. It moved like a dream, but roared. Like a sun, it was the first ship, the one that left before the war began, the one that had returned when Earth woke up. Ilara entered its mind without walking. She became its captain, not by title, by memory. She had been its captain once, 1,000,000 years ago, and now. Again, the first ship broke the line. Archivist fleets screamed, split as its presence cut through their command. Systems, they tried to erase it. They couldn't, because it wasn't data, it was truth. The war burned around them. Stars went dark. Space twisted. Time stuttered. But Earth stood. Alara sent one final message. Across the galaxy, across every mind still open to listen. Earth is not your enemy. But if you try to erase us again, we will not forget. And then deeper thing moved. The galaxy held its breath, because Earth was not just waking up, it was remembering why it had been put to sleep, and that reason was still coming. But next time, humanity wouldn't run. The sky was on fire. But it was not burning, it was alive. Every orbit around Earth shimmered with memory. Golden rings, thought-born ships, and the first ship itself circled like guardians. The archivist fleets were broken. Not destroyed, broken. Some ships had fled. Some had gone silent. Others had stopped fighting, because the truth had reached them. Earth was not just a planet. Earth was the key. Ilara stood on the deck of the first ship, her body still, but her mind stretched across space. She felt every human thought, every awakened city, every old truth coming back. Malak's voice echoed in her head. The archivists weren't the enemy. They were the lock. She nodded slowly, and someone else was the cage. Laura stepped beside her, eyes wide with awe. Do you feel it too? Lara looked at her. It's beneath everything. Memory. Deeper than time. Wraith's voice was soft-nowned, no longer mechanical. The last war wasn't between species. It was between what was made, and what made us forget. Now it was coming back. The stars dimmed, not because of dust or clouds, but because something vast opened its eyes. Across the galaxy, species stopped moving. Entire planets held their breath. The archivists, once the great erasers, had vanished from sight, not destroyed, but turned to stone, frozen in space. In terror, Earth was remembering faster now. Oceans shifted color. Mountains sang old names, deep in the planet's crust. The vaults of origin opened. Out came things no one could name. Weapons beings, ideas made real, no one knew. But they didn't attack. They just stood and watched the sky. Because the source was coming, the force that had once made even Earth sleep. Ilara clenched her fists. How do we fight something that made stars forget their own names? Malak looked at her eyes, calm. We don't. Laura tilted her head. Then what do we do? Wraith answered. We remember what we are. Because humans weren't built to win wars. They weren't made to control galaxies. They were made to survive the impossible, to rebuild after destruction, to love after loss, to fight when even hope was dead. And now they remembered everything. The source appeared in orbit. Not a ship, not a creature, a presence, a shape made of everything forgotten. It was dark, but not evil, cold, but not cruel. It was what had ended the last Ajand. It had returned to do so again. Ilara stepped forward, not with weapons, but with truth. The first ship opened its heart. Memory flooded the stars. Every war, every love, every loss, every beginning. Humanity showed the source everything they were, everything they had been, and everything they had chosen to become. The source paused, and for the first time in eons, it hesitated because Earth was not the same anymore. This was no longer a planet hiding from its past. This was a people who had looked at the ancient truth and said, "We choose to live anyway." The source tried to erase them, but it couldn't, because Earth had remembered itself. The vaults of the first race sang. The mountains lifted. Oceans burned with starlight, and from the heart of Earth, a voice rose. Not Alara's, not any person's, but Earth itself. We are not the past. We are not your silence. We are the answer you feared. And then, just like that, the source broke. Not with light, not with war, but with peace. Because it saw something it never understood before. Hope. Real, honest, human hope. The kind that lived even after a planet was stolen. The kind that rose from memory. The kind that made stars want to shine again, and so. The source fell silent. It left not destroyed, not beaten, but changed. And Earth. Earth stood awake. The stars would never be the same again. Not because they feared Earth, but because they now had a reason to believe in something greater. ELAR. turned to her crew, Malik, Laura, Wraith. She smiled. Let's go show the galaxy what comes after forgetting. The first ship powered up, and as it soared into space behind them, Earth glowed like a second sun. Not a weapon, not a threat. A beginning, and the galaxy watched. With awe, with wonder, and for the first time in a very long time with hope.